Welcome back, my subscribers. In this video, I want to talk about the 50 1.2 from Sigma. I'm a big fan of large aperture lenses, and to be honest, who isn't? F1.2, f.1.1, f1.95. We have tons of options that can go pretty wide, but not with autofocus. Seems like 1.2 has been, so far, the limit for autofocusing large aperture lenses. So whenever there's a 1.2, it's a very special lens. It tends to give you that magical look of separation between the subject and the background, makes it more painterly, it makes it dreamy. The bokeh tends to look amazing, and you're tending to look at lately 35, 50, and 85 millimeter lenses. And these are just great focal lengths to apply at 1.2 because you get excellent, depending on what you want to do. You can go with something wider to get more of the environment, like a 35 1.2, something in the middle like that 50 that I just said, and an 85 which just like locks on. And that is, the subject is the only thing that will pop out. Now, different manufacturers have made these lenses, but today I want to talk about the Sigma version. This is their first time doing a 50 1.2. So I was very excited when that came out, available for other mounts other than the ones who already have 1.2, like Sony's G Master or Canon's RF or the Nikon 1.2s. But since I moved to the L mount to use the Lumix cameras and the Leica SL2S, there was no 50 1.2 until this one was released. So I wanted to compare and use this lens after having the G Master, which is the one I have the most experience with. And back when I was using Canon, I was with the 1.2L. Now, I have to say, right out of the box, it's consistent with Sigma's build quality and feel. Just the riveting, the machining of the aperture ring, just how everything feels. It feels premium. This aperture ring is clicky. I tend to either, depending on how I feel, if I want to control it from here or not, I'll leave it, or I'll just put it in auto to do it in camera, depending on the camera I'm using too. But what you would expect, you can see this in other reviews. It has all the buttons you would want a modern lens to have for focus holding and turning on and off, all that sort of thing, declicking, all that stuff. But how does it actually work? So in using it, coming from the G Master, I had very high expectations because the G Master is one of those lenses that just, it's one of those magical lenses from the Sony line that provides you the great look with excellent autofocus because it has so many autofocus motors. There's very to no jittering you'll ever experience with a lens like that. So I wanted to see if that was the same case with this one. I'm happy to say that using it both on a contrast-based autofocus, which is older, and a face detection autofocus system, it is very snappy. It is quick to go from minimum focus to infinity, and I very rarely have missed a shot so far. On the SL2S, I would say any lens is going to have a bigger challenge because it is contrast detect focused, and I will have to say it is one of the best or better contrast detection focus systems that I've used before. Nowhere near a phase detection autofocus, of course, but for casual photography, for portraiture, on this SL2S, it's been great, and I have shot several shots with this combination, and I don't think I missed any shots. I just, because it's more like daily photography, candid photography, with some portraiture, I'm not looking for speed to come out of the autofocus on this, but it is snappy to where it goes, like I said, to infinity and back really quick. Now, using it on the newer S1RII, it's just like using it similar to on a Sony camera where autofocus is near instant and going to and from points is very easy. So no complaints on the autofocusing, which I think would be the biggest thing for a 1.2, especially when your focus range is so sliver. It's such a sliver. So in my samples, you'll see the look that a 1.2 offers, and that's what's unique about this lens. You're gonna make the subject pop. I think a 50 is a good sweet spot for a 1.2 because you're able to isolate but still get some environment. You're able to get further back with a 50 when you have a 1.2 and still include some separation. A 35, you definitely have to get closer. So that means you're gonna get some distortion. You might not get the face as is. You have to get a little bit further. You have to keep more in mind how you want distortion to look on the face. But I think a 50 is a good middle ground because of the 1.2, having the freedom to take a step back and still isolate the subject pretty good. In real world use, I think it was very snappy with this S1R2. I didn't have any issues with the autofocus, more so with the focusing settings. So that is something you have to keep in mind with any system. With any system, if you're using a lens like this, you want to make sure you're using the best optimized autofocus settings for what you're photographing or taking video of. But other than that, I did notice a bit of swirling, which I have to experiment more with to see if it is there and at what distance, because I'm a big fan of swirling lenses. This is basically a first impressions because there's more use to be made with this lens, with both this camera and the S1R2. I really also want to use it for video and see how that works with the transitions, with the jumping around focus. If it can lock on, playing with the settings, of course, and the motors that are in this lens, I think it makes a very nice run and gun shoot lens because 51.2 just isolates your subject so well. And you always have the option to stop down the aperture, of course. So I hope you liked these first samples just to get an idea of what type of images you can get with this 50. I think it's up there with the G Master in terms of quality and autofocus speed and build. So they did not skimp out. Sigma's doing a great job, and I think there's a lot more coming from them at this 1.2. I'm actually very eager to see if they're ever going to make an 85 1.2 to compete with Canon and Sony, who still hasn't made one. So it'd be interesting if seeing their innovation, if they're going to go for something like that. So I hope you enjoyed the images. Let me know down below if you have experience with this lens and what combination, what system did you get it for? Thanks for watching.